Clair Obscur Expedition 33 changed my life. I know, it's crazy to say that. How can a game change my life? Especially one that came out so recently. But I genuinely didn't know games could get this good. I didn't know a game's writing and character development could be this amazing. I didn't know a world could feel so unique and so lived in, and feel like there's decades worth of lore building this world out without there actually being decades worth of lore. I didn't know a game's music could make me feel the way it does in this game, and the emotional impact of the music hits so hard in the story. And I didn't know a developer's first ever game could be this damn amazing. The crazy thing is, I thought this game wasn't for me. It has turn-based combat, something I'm not really into. It pulls on JRPG elements, a genre of games I don't really know much about. These things made me apprehensive when going into this game, but I am so glad I gave Expedition 33 a shot. So, let's talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33, what it does amazing, what could be improved, and why Expedition 33 is Game of the Year. I want to start with this game's story. I'll try and make this as spoiler free as possible because this game genuinely has some of the best moments and some of the best twists I've ever seen in any piece of media. But let's start with this game's premise. Basically, this game takes place in a fictional fantasy city known as Lumiere. In this world, a massive war broke out 67 years prior to the start of the game's story and caused the entire continent to fracture. During that fracture, a mysterious figure known as the Paintress came alive, and every year since that war 67 years ago, this mysterious Paintress paints a number on a giant monolith, and every single person in the world that age or older dies. This, in Lumiere, becomes to be known as the Gamage, a day where the oldest people of Lumiere die. The number started at 100, and every year since that, the number has gone down by 1. And every year, an expedition is sent out to try and stop the Paintress from painting another number. This game starts with the number 33 on the monolith, and Expedition 33 being sent out into the continent to try again to stop the Paintress. Right off the bat, the premise is insanely intriguing. I mean, it's such a unique premise to a game, and it's really unlike anything I've ever seen. And all the characters, storylines, and especially the music complement this premise so well. I mean, without a doubt in my mind, these are the best written characters and the best written dialogue I've ever experienced in my life. Each character is so unique and has their own personal reasons for going on the expedition. On top of that, the dialogue is just simply phenomenal. This entire game takes place with the pretense of grief. I mean, they live in a world where the oldest people in the world are 32, and you're guaranteed to lose your loved ones far too early. And you feel that in every single conversation that takes place in this game. I love Gustave, I love Maël, and I love all the characters you meet along the way because they feel like real people. Their dialogue feels real, their actions feel real, and their grief feels real. These emotions and dialogue hit so much harder with the amazingly acted cutscenes and the absolute insane music that this game has. Not a lot of games really do full rendered CGI cutscenes anymore, and this game is so much better for it. You really see every emotion on Gustave's face, and the way they move around just feels so much more realistic compared to some other games that have come out recently. And the soundtrack for this game, during the cutscenes and during the gameplay, is simply the best I've ever heard in a game. I genuinely got emotional during some of the heavier scenes, and 95% of the reason was because of the music. This game's world building is also just so impressive. A lot of these ideas, different species in the game, different enemy types, the various expedition journals you find throughout the world from the previous expeditions, all of it add to the feeling of the world being bigger than the here and now. It feels like this game's world has been around for centuries, and every little story has added up to what the game is portraying now. It's a level of world building I've seldom seen in a game like this. It reminds me of a game like Witcher 3. The story felt like it was bigger than just the here and now of that game, but that game had 2 previous games building up to that point. Expedition 33 gives me that feeling without there being those previous games. The last time I felt this way about a game's narrative was Red Dead Redemption 2. 2018 was the last year I ever felt genuine, harrowing emotion from a game's story, and finally, 7 years later, I've experienced a better story. I recommend playing this game based on the story alone. I've never felt this way about a game's story, and frankly, I don't know if I ever will again. Next up, I want to talk about Expedition 33's world. Straight up, Lumiere and the surrounding continent is just gorgeous. Being built on Unreal Engine 5 primes Expedition 33 to look great, but it doesn't really just stop at the graphics. The variety between each of the game's regions is also amazing. From underwater cities to floating towers to snowy train stations, every region in this game feels unique. But in case you can't tell from the gameplay, this game isn't an open world. Each region is actually primarily linear, and you can't freely travel from region to region without any loading screens. The regions are broken up by an overarching overworld. There, you can travel to the different zones and load into them. This overworld system is great. The overworld doesn't just serve as a means to get to the next zone. There are tons of optional bosses, loot, merchants, and other things hidden in the overworld itself. So, you're incentivized to go out and explore the overworld just as much as you're incentivized to go out and explore each specific zone. The zones themselves, while linear, provide some good opportunities to check out a branching path, for there's some solid rewards and even potentially optional bosses. Because of this, you almost always want to explore the branching paths of each zone to try and see what you can find. A lot of times, the loot that you find or the optional bosses that are waiting for you are extremely good. It serves as a way to reward the players that are willing to go off the beaten path and try and find all the secrets that each zone has to offer. On top of all that, there are an insane amount of zones present within the game as well, and only about half to 3/4 of them are actually hit on within the main story. Every zone outside of that is optional, but if you want to level up in a decent manner and take on some of the crazy hard optional bosses in the overworld, you're gonna have to go into these optional zones to try and find loot and level up. This also serves as a way to delinearize the story a little bit. The story itself is fairly linear, but you always have the opportunity to break it up by checking out these optional areas. Some of the areas also have some cool side quests that offer some pretty cool rewards as well. I think my main complaint of this aspect of the game is the lack of zone maps and no waypoint system in the overworld map. I get that the developers wanted to minimize obtrusive HUD elements, and this game basically has no HUD at all, but having a menu opened map within each zone would have been incredibly helpful. Some of these zones are pretty big, and they're hard to explore all the way without getting lost or needing to try and backtrack your way to the main path to continue the story. I think having a stripped down map with little to no icons and potentially a fog of war system where the map only clears the regions of the zone you've explored would have been beneficial for the accessibility within the game. I mean, I mainly just wanted a way to be able to backtrack my way to the main path, and I think a fog of war system could have helped immensely in that regard without damaging the immersion. The other thing I mentioned is having a waypoint system in the overworld map. Even though there's a map of the overworld with the various zones highlighted, there's no real way for you to be able to track those regions outside of the map. You have to rely on constantly opening and closing your map, and relying on the compass to pinpoint the exact location of the zone you're trying to go to. Again, I think a simple waypoint system where you place the waypoint on the map and the marker shows up in your overworld could have been beneficial for the ease of use without detracting from the exploration that the developers wanted to encourage. Overall, this world is extremely gorgeous, incredibly diverse, and insanely fun to explore. Yes, it sometimes sucked to get lost in a zone because I didn't know where I was going, or to have to constantly open the overworld map to try and pinpoint the exact location of the zone I wanted to go to. But those are minor complaints in the overarching narrative of this review. Expedition 33's world surpasses any expectations I had for it, and I would be happy to get lost in it again. The last aspect of this game I want to talk about is the gameplay. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this is the part of the game I was honestly the most apprehensive about. The extent of my turn-based combat experience up until this point has been Pokemon, and so I was unsure if I was really ready to read up on all the characters' abilities and try and min-max my characters. But honestly, I had a fantastic time with this game's combat. Unlike a traditional turn-based RPG, this game has some quick-time elements built in to add a little nuance to the gameplay. For one, during attacks, you have to time and press the A button for maximum damage to occur on the enemy. I think the system is mostly there for you to actually pay attention when you're in a combat scenario. Too often, I feel like the turn-based combat gets a bad rap because of the fact that there's no variability to the gameplay. You engage in a fight, pick your move, wait, and then wait again as the enemy attacks you. Expedition 33 wanted to actively engage you in the fight. The other aspect of the QuickTime events are the dodge and parry mechanics on defense. When you're getting attacked, you can press B to dodge or press RB to parry. The dodge gives you greater leeway, so it's recommended if you don't know the enemy's moveset fully, and the parry requires you to be perfect, but if you pull it off, it gives you a massive attack to end the enemy's turn. These mechanics aren't just suggestions, they are absolutely essential if you want to go out and beat the toughest enemies. It's a little Souls-like in this regard. Enemies can be brutally tough at times, can kill your characters in just a few hits, but take a bunch of hits themselves. On top of that, their movesets can be tricky and require you to really pay attention to be able to dodge and parry effectively. And I cannot say this enough, I fucking love this decision. This game is so much better off with these mechanics because it forced me to actually get good at the game. Figuring out how different enemies telegraph their attacks and finding out ways to stop it, and when the perfect parry hit, man, it was satisfying. Speaking of satisfying, every party member you unlock throughout the game is incredibly unique. Each one has different skills, weapons, and systems they can use to their advantage. For example, Mael has a stance system where each skill she uses puts her in a different stance. These stances can give you extra attack or lower your defense, or extra defense but lower your attack. So it's important you build out your Mael in such a way where the skills complement each other. Maybe start with an attack that puts you in the defensive stance, and then use another attack that uses that defensive stance and gives you a buff for it. This requires you to tailor your Mael to a specific need in your party using the system she's given. And the crazy part is, no other party member uses the stance system. Every other party member has another gameplay system, just as deep and engaging as Mael's, that requires you to learn it and tailor your character to excel in that system. No other game I've played has that many unique gameplay mechanics, but makes it that easy and fun to play with. The progression is something that I think is expertly done in this game as well. There's the traditional leveling system where you level up throughout the game and put points into attack, defense, speed, vitality, and things like that. There's also a weapon leveling system and a potion leveling system, both pretty basic, requiring you to find materials to upgrade those items around the world. And you also have a skill point system where you put in skill points to unlock new skills to use in combat. But the most unique system is the Picto system, and at first I didn't really like it, but I grew to love it. Basically, each character can equip 3 Pictos, an item that you can find out in the world just by exploring or by defeating certain enemies. These Pictos give your character a stat buff, such as in health or defense, but also gives a unique passive ability that can potentially give you a leg up in battle. Once you win 4 battles with the Picto equipped on a certain character, the passive ability becomes universally available for all your party members, and you're free to assign it to however many party members you want. The catch is that these passive abilities cost Lumina points, and each character only has a finite amount of those Lumina points. This means that strategy is required on which party member gets which passive ability, because some passives are more expensive to use than others. At first, this system was incredibly overwhelming. You're thrown a lot of Pictos at you fast, and it's tough to determine which passives are worth equipping to other party members. And this problem really only gets worse when you get way more Pictos than you do Lumina points for each character, and because of this, you really have to start picking and choosing which passives you want on your party members. However, once you start learning each character, what they excel at, what aspects they maybe struggle in, it starts to become easier to recognize which passives are worth applying and which are not. However, the overwhelming choice of Pictos and passives never really goes away. I get why the developers wanted to do this. The sheer amount of Pictos gives the player extreme agency on how they want each party member to build out, but I wouldn't mind if they lowered the amount of Pictos a little bit. Some of the passives are almost identical to each other with just one little thing switched, and I think those near identical passives are simply not needed. This is an amazing and unique system that I think is absolutely worth keeping if they ever decide to try and do a sequel of some sort, but I think tailoring the Pictos would be worth it in lowering that overwhelming feeling. Look, overall though, the gameplay is still fucking amazing, and it kept me engaged throughout the runtime of the game. In fact, I would be enticed to do a second and third playthrough through New Game Plus simply because I would want to build out my party members different ways and see if I can maximize their skill sets. When I said at the beginning that I feel like this game changed my life, I meant it. There are obviously aspects of this game that have been done better by other games before it. There are games that have had more immersive worlds or have insanely unique gameplay or progression systems, but no game has made me feel the way Expedition 33 has. I've always considered myself as a narrative-first gamer. Red Dead Redemption 2 has been my favorite game of all time, not because of the gameplay, but because of the gorgeous world, and more importantly, the beautiful and moving story of Arthur Morgan. But even Red Dead 2 did not make me feel the sheer awe I have for this game's narrative, characters, and world building. That might be a crazy take, and I don't know if 7 years down the line, I'll feel the way I feel about this game like I do Red Dead Redemption 2, but I suspect that this game is going to stick with me for a long time. Long enough for me to consider it one of my favorite games I've ever played. Sandfall Interactive absolutely crushed it. For their first game ever, this game isn't just a triumph in what it sets out to accomplish, it's a straight up masterpiece. I cannot wait to see what Sandfall does next, because Lord knows I'll be there to play it. Either way, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing to see more content like this. Let me know your thoughts on Expedition 33, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, how you feel about the game. I really was not expecting to love this game as much as I did. I really just can't get enough of it, and I'm so glad that I took a chance on it and played it. But yeah, guys, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's CGG. I'm out.